Hi everyone, Hannah, Holly. So I wanted to do a fairly quick video on a subject that has just been sort of coming up lately that I think is topical and one that we need to all recognize in not just relationships with people romantically, but all relationships. You know, when you actually look at, there's a really great book called The Culture Code, and it talks about corporate cultures, and that one of the main one of the main characteristics of a very successful corporate culture, and don't worry, this will all circle back, so just stay with me here. One of the very most important things about corporate culture is that one of the standard things that makes a successful corporate culture is that the employees have psychological safety. So think of that they have the safety to be themselves. And this isn't shocking information. This isn't new. This is exactly the same truth as families, because great running companies are like families. And if you don't have the safety to be yourself, to express yourself, to be authentic, then you will learn how to cultivate skills that project who you think you need to be in order to survive, in order to be promoted, in order to embrace whatever the culture is. And whenever there's a disconnect between what a company says it matters to them and what their decisions are, whenever there's a gap between those things, you have a false culture, you have inauthenticity, and people won't connect with the company anymore. This is true of families too. This is true of relationships. We love openness, we love growth, we love transparency, and then as soon as you're honest, you get shit on, right? So fuck that. You know, like, this is like, I constantly get comments on my podcast. I got a comment saying that I talk about such beautiful things, but they can't believe I use such dirty language. And they give me 1 fucking star. And I'm like, don't try to make me your teacher. Don't try to make me fit into this fucking box where you don't like that people swear. And I'm like, I just don't want to edit me. Now, is there times when I shouldn't go dropping F-bombs? Yeah, of course. But this is my platform. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. But don't give me 1 star because you love the content, but you don't like that I swear, right? So that's like, people constantly are trying to make you what they need so they're comfortable. Go find someone else, you know, go find a different relationship, right? And the reason I'm coming to this is because it's all the same thing, which is your people do not need you to fit into a certain box to be their people. You know, like, they're not going to need you. Now, if you have problems with communication, anger, defensiveness, criticism, which if you're human, you probably have some challenges there, like we all do, then it is your work to do. And it is important to change, not for them, but for you, so you maintain more connectivity in relationships. That's why you want to change. You don't want to change for them, because if you lose them, you'll lose your changes. Right? That's why whenever you change for something else, it doesn't last. It doesn't fucking last. And that's because you've attached it to keeping someone or getting someone. As soon as you attach anything to those things, as soon as they're gone, it's gone. Because then you'll go, well, I fucking changed and they didn't stay. Fuck them. But you win. Do you see that? You change, you win. And if you lose them, that's okay. Because the point of life is not to hold on to people. It's not. It's to hold on to yourself. And this comes to the whole reason I wanted to do this live, which is respect is the fucking minimum. If your relationships do not have respect, they do not have kindness, then you will not feel safe to open up as a human being. Full stop. Full fucking stop. If you do not have respect in your relationships. Now, this means that you have to respect the other person too. This is on both people. This isn't just a one-sided thing. This is a both people thing. Now, if you tolerate people who do not respect you, then you will not believe you're worthy of respect. This is why the most important thing in all of this work is recognizing that respect is the minimum and respect is a must. But if you do, the deeper belief that you have, if you tolerate disrespectful behavior, will be that you're not worthy of respect. So you will live in a deep sense of unworthiness. That's what will happen. And this is why when you get into relationships with people who treat you poorly, who are unkind, who cheat, who fucking lie, that means you believe you're worthy of that behavior. That actually is what it means, because if you didn't believe it, you wouldn't tolerate it. You tell that person to go pound sand. You tell that person to get the fuck out of here. Because what has to happen with a human being is that, I gotta set my coffee down for this because I gotta use my hands, is if you're in a relationship with someone who treats you unkindly, this is the person, this is you. If your belief is that you're worthy of great love and you keep this person, then your belief has to change. It has to, because whatever you choose, you will believe about yourself, right? If you want to find out what someone believes, look at their choices. So now, if you find someone who's disrespectful and unkind and you get rid of them, you reinforce your belief. I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough. This is the minimum. And now the other side of this is if you believe that you're enough and you keep them, you have to change your belief. Like, do you see that? So it all comes down to what is the constructs of what you allow. What is the price of admission to be in your life? What is the price of admission to be in your life? And you know, when they look at the long-term relationships and actually what are the greatest qualities in the research, it's kindness and respect. It's kindness and respect. So look for those. You know, I read a really great quote from Matt Hussey where it said that they aren't the one when you meet them. They become the one by how they treat you. And that's a very good point. That's such a beautiful way of thinking about it. It's like you don't just give them your heart because you had fucking chemistry. Like you could have chemistry with a chair. You know, like don't just give them your heart because you have chemistry, because you'll be attracted to people who are shitty because evolutionarily you're going to be like, this person's powerful. They're going to fight for our genes. I can't wait to bang them and then get in a relationship that's dysfunctional as fuck. But you know what? They're the one and we had chemistry. No, allow them to prove that they are the one as you prove to yourself that you are their one. And that way you have these two people who are showing up to a relationship, making it so their efforts are never going away, right? Like where they're actually constantly making an effort to show that they are worthy of being chosen, that they're a great partner choice. Now, how do you understand what respect is if you don't have a foundational understanding of it? That's a great question. I mean, I would say that as a baseline, humans understand what respect is by observing it. I mean, I would just Google what is respect. Right away, you'll get a really good answer, but then you got to pay attention to it. Now, this is where the human psyche has a lot of issues, which is when we learn something that proves that something we've been doing is not working or we've been fucking up, we experience shame. And then when we experience shame, we usually shut down and continue the behavior. So I'm saying don't do that. Like learn something about how you could show up, about how you've been, poorly behaved, how you haven't been having great conversations, how you haven't been respectful. And then what you need to do is you need to shift your behavior. Now, most of us, when we experience shame, we shut down and we try to lie and we try to hide and we'll deny, we get defensive, we call out their stuff. Well, you do that too. Well, you do this, because we don't want to absorb their words because our worthiness feels completely called into question. So when someone says to you, when you did that thing, it really hurt me, and you're like, well, you do this, right? You're not receiving them. Receive them. You can give them feedback when it's your turn. But when something you've done has hurt someone and you hear it and you say, I can imagine that really hurt. I can imagine that was really hard. And when you have to let go of who you are to keep anyone, when you have to accept a lie as the truth and you don't actually pay attention to what you're seeing and what you're feeling in relationships. I see this all the time. People stay in relationships with people who treat them like shit. They stay in relationships with people who cheat on them. They stay in relationships with people who lie. And the reason we're in relationships with them is because we're being invited to step into our power. We are being invited to develop new skills. We are being invited to see how fucking powerful we really are. Then no, this is not okay. I'm done. I'm out. Because if you have to actually make the lie, if you have to hear the lie from them, oh no, she's just a friend. Or, oh no, he's just a coworker, you're losing your mind, right? All this bullshit that we feed, that we get fed. And when you actually believe that truth over what you actually know to be true, even though you got the fucking phone with all the evidence, a picture of someone, having sex or whatever it is, the moment you actually make that truth that you know not exist, you will go crazy. And that's because you will be living in a world where lies are the truth. You'll be living in a world where you have to deny you and your truth to keep them. And the moment you do that, you lose yourself. And that's usually a pattern that many of us have been in, which is give away me in order to keep you. And that comes back to the very beginning of this live, which I said that the greatest corporate cultures and the greatest families and the greatest relationships have psychological safety and freedom to be ourselves. And if they are not, we learn how to construct a different version of us to meet them so that we can feel safe. Now, the moment that you connect back to truth, to who you are, to what you love, to what is important to you, and you connect back to the lies that you've been believing, and you own that, and you go, I've believed lies. I've been sold down the motherfucking river. Let me hold back onto myself, because what you're doing is you're grabbing back the child in you, who you have put in the range of fire, you have put in the battle, and you grab them and you save them and you say, no more. It's time for me to take care of myself. It's time for me to stand up for myself. It's time for me to protect me. No one else is going to do it for you. If respect is the minimum to get in a relationship, do you demand respect? Do you take the child in you and say, you never speak to me like that? You never do that. And if you ever try it again, I'm gone. The respect is the minimum. I think it's Lauryn Hill, right? Girl, respect is just the minimum, right? It's a song from, I think it's a lyric from one of her songs. So that's my rant for the day. And it is because we all need to recognize that no one's going to come and hand you respect. No one's going to come and give you this thing magically without you having to at least learn how to build boundaries around who you are and what you want and the minimum amount of behavior that you tolerate in your life. Now, you can meet really wonderful people, really great people, people who will treat you with respect, and it will feel foreign. And you might not be attracted to people who do that because you've coded disrespect as being normal in love. That's not okay, right? You already know in your head, and I'm sure your friends have told you, that person disrespects you. That person's not good for you. That person is not the type of person who should have access to your life. And what happens is when you connect to that truth, when you actually get to that place, then you can actually start to transform, right? Then you could start to transform. And you'll start to be attracted to good men when you say no to bad men. You'll be attracted to good women or good people. I don't mean to be heteronormative, but you'll be attracted to good people when you believe that you're worthy of it. And you'll only believe that by saying no to the wrong people. And that is the growth. That's why your chemistry might be attracting you to people who treat you like shit. And that's because you're being invited to grow and change and transform and build the skills to finally say no to people who treat you poorly and lie to you, which likely started in your childhood, likely started in your home. So that can feel very foreign when a man or a woman or anyone tries to love you and tries to care about you, and you get icky and vulnerable and you're like, I'm going to sabotage this, or I'm going to cheat on them, or because you have a deeper sense of unworthiness. Now, that takes work, right? It takes vulnerable work to navigate this. It takes vulnerable work to step towards this. I was a master of choosing unavailable. I was a master, or I just have short-term relationships that were at the club, where you could just end them, or you were looking for something not as long-term. And as soon as I remember actually seeing this girl, and we were laying on the couch, I was probably like 20, no, I was probably like 20. And I had just been through the most devastating breakup of my life. And it was probably about 3 months later. I was a disaster, maybe 5 months later. And she said to me, I'm starting to like you. And I could feel my stomach like, oh, God, what are you talking about? Yeah. She wants too much. And I totally, I don't think ghosting was a thing then, but I'm pretty sure I just became rapidly unavailable and started texting her less. Instead of actually saying, I'm super scared and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm terrified of being loved, because I didn't know. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know. I thought she wasn't my person, or any of it. And she wasn't my person because I'm not with her. But do you see that when you start to recognize that you're afraid of love or actually receiving, then you can start to be in those situations and feel how resistant you are to actually being loved by someone. And that is because on a deeper level, that story already plays out that makes you want to shut down. So what happens is, I have people answer this question all the time in my workshops and seminars, which is, when I let people love me, they, and when I love people, they. You finish those sentences and you'll find what your upper limit in love is and where you think the story goes. So you'll constantly sabotage before that, and humans are masters at sabotage. We're on week 3 of the 30-day How to Make Change Last program, and in week 3 it's all about self-sabotage. It's all about recognizing what are the little tricks that we do, because humans are masters at figuring out ways to not get hurt. And that's why you have to see self-sabotage is actually a really beautiful protective mechanism. Its intention is to not get hurt. Self-sabotage is brilliant because the human psyche is saying, we've been through such devastating pain and we never want to go there again. And so what happens is the human mind, mostly subconsciously, what it does is it creates a pattern recognition, a paradigm. And so you can think of about like this. You have a template in your subconscious, usually, it's almost always in your subconscious, that says when we have someone who might love us, or we start to catch feelings for somebody, or someone can really show up for us, or we're in this relationship or this experience or this thing, the subconscious recognizes patterns and creates ways to blow up our life, blow up the relationship, blow up the thing. It happens with our bodies. It happens with food. It happens with career. It happens with opportunities. We might show up late for things. We might not call people back. We might underperform compared to what our skill set could actually do. So self-sabotage shows up in so many little tricky ways, and we often do, we often don't even know we're doing it, and sometimes we do. And so like sleeping in when you know you shouldn't have, not showing up for something, being late, not being kind, causing fights, cheating, all of these different ways that we try to ruin success. But remember what I said is the underlying psychology of this is we're not really trying to ruin what could possibly be different or a different story. It's that we're actually preventing the hurt that we think the story leads to. So we'll constantly dance in the moment right before the hurt, right before the last time we lost ourselves, and I mean, this is why week 3 in my program is so important, because we're really all about, you're about to form a new habit. 21 days takes to form a habit. You're about to form it. Your psyche is uncomfortable about this new habit because humans, even if we live in the world where we are lonely, we're hurting, we're everything feels fucked up, we don't feel in our purpose, we don't love our bodies, we don't, all of these different things, the human psyche would rather stay in that than actually experience freedom, love, and worthiness. Because the last time we had it, usually early in childhood, it led to pain. So you see that? You see that? And when I was playing soccer growing up, I got invited to try out for the provincial team, like the state team. And I just didn't go to the tryouts because I was afraid to get cut. And so I didn't want to experience what it was like to fail, so I just never went. But do you see that the very thing you fear when you do something like that, like the thing I feared, which was being rejected, I rejected myself. I didn't even give myself the opportunity. When I was in college, I tried out for the college soccer team, and I was doing really well in the tryouts, and then I just stopped going to the practices and the tryouts because I was afraid I wouldn't make it. And this is all these little ways. Now I love that edge. I love the space that I don't know how things work out, because that's where life gets really beautiful. That's where when you get to the edge of the unknown, you're creating a new story, you're changing a pattern, you're having to learn as you go. There's nothing more delicious than that. There's nothing more delicious than that. Anyways, if you guys can learn how to step towards the story that you're avoiding creating so you can take power over the story you have, then you'll see that when you take responsibility for your whole life, when you go, holy shit, I've chosen some bad things, I've chosen some good things, I've showed up poorly, I've showed up well, and that's overwhelming to know that I've done these bad things. but I'm ready to actually take responsibility for my life and show up today and actually love myself and cultivate a beautiful life. And that's available to anybody who's willing to choose it. And when you think about this, and this is one thing that religion, in some ways, I don't really love the messaging of. Some religions do have good messaging about it, but let's not get into that, which is we make God this thing that's outside of us. We usually make God a man too, which is interesting. But we make God this thing outside of us. And when we do that, we're striving for God's approval or disapproval. And so our behaviors are trying to get achievement and approval, and we're trying to achieve this thing. And what happens is we put it outside of us instead of recognizing that God is within all of us, that, you know, Christ consciousness is a way of being. I'm pretty sure that Jesus Christ wasn't like, yeah, okay, I'm going to save this leper, but gays, you shouldn't get married. Of course not. That's not the way it actually works. And so when we can start to recognize that when you take responsibility for your life, when you actually connect to your behaviors and how they make other people feel and how people make you feel, you see that we're all connected, and not only in this sort of existential idea of the universe and interconnection, but actually in the way that we all influence and affect each other by how we love, by how we communicate, by how we take responsibility for our lives. And Alan Watts has this really beautiful statement where he says that when you actually wake up to the ability to choose, to conscious choice, you will become the God you were taught to praise. And I love that. And not in this idea that you're God, but you are. You are the God of your life. You get to choose. You do not have to put God as something outside of you that you're seeking approval for. You don't even have to put Jesus as someone outside of you, because all prophets of all religions had a consciousness that was the same. You know, this idea of universal love and care and protection and safety and kindness and respect. And that respect is the fucking minimum for your life, for my life, for anyone to be in it. That's why I don't have narcissists in my life, at least not that I know of. I guess they're covert, they're real good. But I don't have people like that in my life because I could just not tolerate them. That shit would never happen. I don't have people who are abusive in my life because that shit wouldn't be tolerated. Because when you want to actually change and transform, go find people who are already acting the way you want to be. And what it will do is it will first prove it's possible for you. And secondly, it will create a pattern of behaviors, choices, and communication that you can start to model and mirror. Just by being around people you admire, you will become someone you admire. And you could do that without that. You could go watch videos of people you admire. You could go on YouTube. You could listen to meditations. You could do anything to transform yourself in any moment. And it's okay if you fucked up. It's okay if up until this moment you didn't know and you couldn't figure it out and you're not sure. And then it's time, now, right now. And what happens if you had a narcissist parent or a narcissist? Then you probably didn't get a lot of attention. Then you probably didn't get your needs met. But that's their stuff. And when someone treats you like shit in a relationship, even as a child, your parents did, you made that about you. And when someone treats you like shit in a relationship, that's not about you. That's about them. That's about them and what they believe about themselves. And you know, how do you forgive yourself for hurting someone? You take the active steps to seek forgiveness, and you grow from the experience, and you do not allow your life to be the same. You don't live in the same patterns. If you hurt someone by doing something, then you better rise the fuck up and change and grow and take the wisdom from the pain you've created and grow. Like, I've hurt lots of people. But you know what? Now I've gone back through my whole life and gone, where have I done this? When did I hurt? What did I do wrong there? How could I change and grow so that never happens again? And when you do that, then you actually grow into the person you need to be to change the patterns. And that involves, like, I've reached out to the people I think I've hurt, like the people who I'm like, I consciously know I hurt these people, and apologized. And that was the best I could do. And if someone I hurt is watching this and is like, you hurt me, you fucker, you didn't apologize, then tell me. Because for me, I want to hear the pain I caused so that I can own it, so that I can say sorry, so that I can feel what it's like to not show up well. Like when my partner says, you didn't do that well, I didn't like the way you said that, I'm like, whoa, yeah. Sometimes I'm like, no, I was fine, right? But then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, I'm sorry. because staying connected to her is more important than me defending my self-worth. And what happens is we end up so much more connected because I go, I hear you. I'm gonna do better. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for the feedback. And that's why your partnerships, if you share this space of love and a standard of being able to communicate together, then what will happen is you will cultivate a space where staying connected more is more important than defending each other's BS. I love you all. I'm gonna save this. I hope you have the most wonderful day. Remember, respect is the fucking minimum. Amen. Also, if you could do me a favor, can you go on my iTunes podcast, Mark Groves podcast, listen to it if you haven't. It's fucking amazing. The guests are so good. And if you could give me a 5-star review and give me a written review. The written reviews really help me. If just like 10 of you did that, that would make a huge difference. I would be so appreciative. So thank you, everyone. So grateful for all of you. Respect is the minimum.